la habla Susi Pallero, que va a ser la encargada de entrevistar a Christopher. Adelante, Susi, cuando quieras. Gracias.
Bueno, muchas gracias Mireia, buenas tardes a todos, muchas gracias por venir. Veo que tenemos gente conocida y reyes de la accesibilidad entre los asistentes también. Así que nada, muchas gracias por venir, por hacerse el tiempo. Vamos a arrancar, como siempre, ustedes tienen ya estas instrucciones para poder ir al canal en español o al canal en inglés, según corresponda y según quieran. Y yo voy a cambiar a inglés para poder hablar con Christopher, así que me van a escuchar en ese canal, ¿sí? Como siempre digo, detrás de un acento marcado hay mucha valentía, así que mi inglés puede no ser el mejor, pero haré lo posible. Um, all right, so I'm now switching to English for Chris. I already said this, I know, but I want to say it in front of everyone. Thank you very much for your time, Christopher. I know that your agenda is packed. So thanks for making the time to be here with us and for sharing all the knowledge that you have. We will be having a conversation after your presentation, but I think that this is really valuable for everyone here because the kind of role that you have and the kind of background that you have, you're kind of this unicorn in accessibility that I would love to make a lot of questions, yeah, about everything that you do. So um, let's start with your presentation. So the stage is yours.
Thank you. I like to start with a presentation because it gives me a chance to explain who I am, how I got here, and part of my story gets weaved into what I wanted to share. So let me do the necessity of sharing this presentation.
All right. Now let's pretend that we don't know who you are. You know, you're famous. You have to embrace that.
I'm nobody. I just talk a lot. So thank you for letting me come and join you. Again, my name is Christopher. I lead accessibility and disability innovation for Google for EMEA. So Africa, Middle East, and Europe. This is my region. I sit across all projects. I sit across all products, which means I get yelled at by a lot of people. But it's still the best job in the world because I get to wake up every day and focus on helping people live the life that they want to live. And that's not a bad way to spend your time. So how I got here is really quite silly. I'm born and raised in San Francisco, California, just south of San Francisco. And I studied music in school. I'm a failed opera singer. And I realized in my mid-20s, I was making a lot more money waiting on tables than I was singing, and thought it probably meant something for a career. So I was lucky that being in the Bay Area, I was able to get into tech. So within a year of joining Google, within a year of joining tech, I was at Apple. I spent 10 years at Apple. I worked on the first iPod, I worked on the first iTunes, the G4 Towers, G5 Towers, and Final Cut Studio. And then I went to Sony Ericsson and made phones for a couple of years because I thought that was cool. And then I went to Disney Mobile, made video games because I thought games were cool. But I joined Google about 14 years ago. And it was here where I discovered accessibility because my product wasn't accessible. What happened is we had a test engineer. I was the lead technical program manager for Google Play Music. We had a test engineer come into our team, turns on voiceover. I hear button, 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 button. I said, what's that? And she said, well, this is Google Play Music for someone who's blind. I said, well, gosh, that's stupid. How do they use it? She said, they don't. That's why I'm here. And I couldn't look away. So within a couple of months, I volunteered to take on accessibility for Google Play. And then I did a dalliance in AR and VR. And about 9 years ago, I joined the central accessibility team. And one of my first jobs was to help make accessibility teams all around the company. And then come 2020, I turned 50 and realized I only lived with good weather. So I moved the family to England. But the real reason I moved us here is because I recognized that that Google wasn't getting ready for the European Accessibility Act. And I knew we weren't engaged in the creation of it. I thought we probably needed to do something to get ready. So I pitched my job to my boss, and she said yes. And her boss said yes, and her boss said yes. And we moved the family in 2021. And we opened up accessibility discovery centers, which we'll talk about a little bit later, in 2022. And that brought me to who I am today. But what I want to start with is, why does a company like Google care about accessibility? Because we are so big, we do so many kind of things. I get this question all the time. And I'm lucky because I can honestly say that it's part of our mission statement, which is to make the world's information universally accessible and useful. Now, I'll be frank, when Larry and Sergey, our founders, made their mission statement, I don't think they were talking about my version of accessibility when they said accessible, but they did say universally accessible. And you can't be universally accessible if you ignore the 1.3 billion people who have disabilities. So I get it for free. And when I say universally accessible, it's not just digital, it's also the real world. We have this really interesting ability to, because of something like Google Maps, tell you what restaurant is accessible, tell you what cafe. We can, because of the information we have in Google Maps, we can tell you if you're in a wheelchair, what the right route is to go from your home to your favorite cafe and whether they have accessible toilets or not. We can show you step-free access all the way there. It's wonderful. This is an opportunity to take what we know and apply it towards things that have great value. And especially as you start looking forward into things like wearables, we're about to take a huge another step into making the real world accessible through technology. Because, and I alluded to this a moment ago, disability affects everybody. There's the 1.3 billion people that the WHO says have a self-identified dramatic or profound disability. But in reality, there's a whole bunch of us that have a disability but don't really recognize it, either because of stigma or you're just not aware of it. And I count myself in that camp. I'm dyslexic, and I didn't realize that until I started doing this work in my 40s. Then the friends and family make a big difference. Think to that family who has a member of their family who's a wheelchair. You're not going to go to a restaurant if there are steps there, because you don't want to have to carry your family member up the stairs. Or think about video games. Before the day Sony came up with their accessibility controller, all the disabled gamers are going to Xbox because their friends, they wanted to play games with their friends. And then, which meant their friends and their families all bought Xboxes until Sony had to make their move, and now there's a more even playing field. But frankly, every single one of us, if we're lucky enough to get old, we're going to have some kind of disability situation, whether it's permanent or situational or temporary. We're all going to have a situation where if we were to work with a thoughtfully designed product, it'll be there for us. It'll meet our needs. So what I want to do is share with you a couple key methods that I've seen over the years, how you can create accessible technologies. Step number one, leverage your strengths. Do what you're good at. And surprise, surprise, I'm from Google. I'll be talking about AI. Two, one of the most important things, nothing about us without us. You never want to build for someone, you want to build with and for someone. Only someone with a disability can tell you what's broken. And that person can probably give you a really great clue on how to fix it because they've spent their life working in the world that was not designed with them in mind. Three, if 1.3 billion people sound like an awful lot of people, it is, and it's hard to know where to get started. So start with one. Start with working on with one person, or start building one feature that you know you need to do, or just start fixing one bug. Just get started, because you're never ever going to be done. People are hard, and you're never going to be perfect for everybody. So don't let that be the goal. You're going to be building a process of making your product or service more and more accessible, because you're never going to be perfectly accessible for everybody, which also means you need to be clear on how you handle criticism and complaints, because since you can't be perfect for everyone, be kind to yourself, be curious and be humble, recognizing the shortcomings of what we're doing. Because again, this is hard work, but it's really meaningful. So what I want to do is I'm going to show you how we've actually done this at Google, specifically around captions. So go back to 2009. YouTube had our very first experiment in captions. It was English only, and they weren't great. In all honesty, they weren't great. But we partnered with the deaf community, and they said, you know, it may not be perfect, but it's good enough. In fact, it's so much better than nothing. Please don't stop. And that encouragement gave us the courage, literally courage, like, oh, this is terrible. No, it's better than nothing. It gave us the courage to make it better. And we continued to invest and invent and work until today we're at the point where we have 67 different languages for free on YouTube for everyone. Upload your video and we'll do the rest. And then 10 years later, we took this tech stack that worked for a video with upload and made it real time. And we were the first companies in the world to provide free captions in any language. And we did it for English in 2019, just before COVID. Really interesting and good timing. And then we also continued to invent and continued to work at it. Today we have, surprise, surprise, 87 languages. The same 87 languages in YouTube because it's based off the same stack. Today we have African languages, we have Asian languages, we have Indic languages, we have variations of Arabic. Now, mind you, there's 7,000 languages in the world. So 87 isn't that much to sing about, but it's a whole lot better than nothing. And these are getting better and better all the time, and we're adding more and more languages all the time. But what's really exciting for me is the device you have in your hand, because this is what you take with you everywhere. Your phone in your pocket or your purse is the key to living a complete life in this world that wasn't designed for us. So here we have a beautiful application called Live Transcribe and Sound Notifications, where we can provide real-time transcription in over 120 languages. If you can't speak or can't be understood, we can pop up a keyboard and you can type up your question. We can tell you when someone calls you, because if someone is sitting next to you and calls your name because they want to say something and you can't hear it, you can't engage. We can also tell you when dinner's done, because we can tell you what the sounds that happen in your world. So we can tell you when a baby's crying or a car alarm is going off. But if you help us understand what your kitchen timer sounds like, we can help you know when dinner's done, because surprise, surprise, deaf people get distracted too. And what we've learned by working with the community is that often people who are deaf end up burning their food because they don't hear the timer. They don't get the timer and they get distracted. So we can provide another layer of information, helping someone not burn dinner. Seems like a simple thing, but it's a meaningful one. And it was invented by these two guys at a hackathon a number of years ago. So Dimitri's on the left, Chet is on the right, and let them tell their story.
I'm set. Yeah. Ready?
I completely lost hearing when I was 1 year old. Technology provides tremendous opportunities to help people with disabilities. I'm a research scientist at Google, and I'm developing speech recognition in technology. Speech recognition accuracy finally became so good that I could fulfill my dream for whole life, to use speech recognition to communicate with people. Hello.
Hello, how are you?
I'm fine, and how are you?
I'm doing good. What can I get you today?
I would like tea. Live Transcribe is an application that runs in Android. It provides transcription of speech for deaf and hard of hearing in real time.
Dimitri worked with the speech team to develop that technology, and Google has made strides in this in the past couple years, but the app itself is what I've been working on. I'm not an Android engineer. I saw an opportunity for something useful and dug into that and kind of evolved naturally.
Did I already mention to you I'm having one of my
So it literally was built, the prototype was literally built over a weekend, so these two guys could play chess together. I love that. They're using technology to live the lives that they want. So one nice thing about Live Transcribe is that it has cloud-based models for all 120, but also has an on-device model for many. And this means you don't need to have an internet connection. This means it's more secure, and it means it has lower latency. But we realize if you have this on-device model, you can put it in an operating system and do other things with it. So we pulled it from the app and put it into Android. And since 2019, we've had on-device captions for almost any audio that you have on your device. So social media back then didn't have all the captions that we have today, but there's also voice notes that people still send or videos that get shared. If you can't hear the words, you can't really participate. So we're not trying to fix anyone. We believe in the social model of disability accessibility. We're using technology to help someone in situations where the technology or situation isn't conducive for them being engaged. And then more recently, we've been using these new large language models to try to go beyond the string, beyond the words. So now we can tell you what sounds are happening in the video, whether it's television, YouTube, or what's not. We can tell you when someone's yelling by throwing in a caps, or we can give you hints of what people are saying, if they're sighing, or if there's cheers and applause. We try to give you the information that a hearing person has. And we're not trying to tell you what it means, because that would be really difficult. It's cultural, and it changes depending on the disability. We're not trying to say what someone is feeling. We're just trying to tell you what we're hearing and let you decide what makes sense for that situation. But again, when you have this on-device model with low latency, you can do other things. And we realized using the phone is an important use case for a phone. So we added that ability.
I hesitated for a few seconds, and I realized the enormity of it, what it really meant. I'm 55 years old, and for the first time, I was able to call my son.
This is Matthew. He likes to swim in cold water.
After a swim, you feel alive.
Like really, really cold water.
I also swam across the English Channel.
But that's another story. Matthew is deaf.
People think if I got a hearing aid on, I could hear everything. And that's not true. I lip read most of the time. I have two boys, and they're both very important parts of my life.
This is Matthew's youngest son.
Hi, I'm Harry.
He lives in Hong Kong and plays rugby.
I always want to keep in touch with him. Before, I need to communicate with him through Zoom or WhatsApp. I would try and lip read him, but it's really hard because it's not 3D, it's a flat screen. When I got the Google Picture phone, because the live capture feature, Harry was the first person I phoned. It was incredible. And we were talking for about half an hour. All of a sudden, he said,
Dad, do you realise this is the first time we've talked on the phone?
I was speechless for 3-4 seconds, and it realised what it really meant. I'm 55 years old, and for the first time in my life, I was able to call my son.
So that's really meaningful. We're using technology to help bring people together from thousands of miles away. And started with YouTube, but we're not done yet. We realized that a lot of people who are deaf aren't as verbal as Matthew, who was in that last call, that last video. And there are a lot of reasons why some people can't be understood even if they have hearing. Say you have MND or ALS, these neurodegenerative diseases that make it hard for people to understand you. So we added to the dialer the ability to pop up sort of like WhatsApp, but on your phone, type up a message and click send, and it will create a voice for you, because there's still things in the world that you have to use your phone for verification. And if you can't talk, you can't do it. So now you can be deaf and nonverbal and use the phone just like everybody else. But we're not done yet, because technology continues to evolve. So what we have here is a screenshot from a video from 2019 of a prototype that we were building on, believe it or not, captions and glasses, but is also for translation. So 6 years ago, we were trying to figure out how to make this work. So coming up very soon, we're going to start seeing glasses that will allow you to understand what someone is saying in front of you if you can't hear them. Or if they speak a different language, we can translate it for you in real time using Google Translate. This is not science fiction. This is literally coming soon, like maybe even next year. And the technology continues to evolve, because just because you can't speak doesn't mean you can't communicate. This thing called sign language, of course. Well, about a year ago, we announced this thing called Sign Gemma, which is a technology that is going to be open source. We're not done yet, but it's going to be open source that will allow sign language to text transcription, not translation or interpretation, but transcription. And we thought we would be done by now, but we're not. We've been partnering with the deaf community, and they're telling us what they're giving us the guidelines and when is it good enough. But soon, you'll be able to have your phone understand sign language. And then eventually, of course, you need to be able to communicate back. And then eventually, we'll be able to do sign language back. That's not soon. But again, progress over perfection. Let's do what we can now, develop the insights, and work together. But I want to show you one video, because I've been talking all of my time about captions and all my time for hearing. But the technology is really meaningful and powerful for everybody. And we have a really cool feature called Gemini Live. And this is something that is really helpful for people who are blind. And a buddy of mine from Liverpool told me a story. I thought it was so great. I asked him to make a video for me, telling the story how he bought a birthday card for his mother-in-law using Gemini Live. So I'm going to share this with you. Again, I apologize. He's from Liverpool. He talks fast, but it's a funny story.
Hey everyone, my name's Mark. So as a blind guy, I rely on technology every day, whether it's in my job or whether it's simply getting me from A to B. Tech has totally transformed my life. So over the past few weeks, I've been having a really good play with Gemini and Gemini Live specifically to see what it can do for me in my everyday life. Now, about 2 days after I started using it, my other half said to me, we need to get a card for my mum. It's her birthday and we haven't been on Moonpig. Now, my other half and I are both blind, so going into a shop and selecting a card is a little bit tricky, although she has a bit more vision than me, but she had to go into London and I was at home and I was left with the task. So I thought I'd take full advantage of that. And I decided to use Gemini Live to go and select the card within the shop. Now, as I was left to it, I decided to go down the route of finding a card, which was a little bit rude, I have to say. So I used Gemini Live in the store, and it told me that the card section, I think, which was called Humor, was over to the left. So I went over to there, and Gemini then told me, or gave me a bit of a flavor as to what cards were around. And I selected a couple of cards. Gemini read them to me. It did make me laugh out loud, actually, in the shop a couple of times. So everybody must have thought I was a bit weird. But then I did select a card, which I will include at the end of this video. But I have to say, my other half's mum was laughing, but my other half definitely wasn't impressed with me. But I took full advantage. Now, it sounds like such a simple task, but I've never been able to do that. I felt like a superhero in many ways, because going into a shop like that and being presented with so many visuals, I've just not done that. I've never been able to see that, and I've never had that experience, certainly laughing at cards in a shop. But Gemini gave me that ability, and I felt incredibly empowered, and I absolutely loved it. And that's just one way that it's been integrated into my life.
So that's really neat for me. This was not designed for blind people, what the experience he used. We've been working with blind people for a long time, and over the next handful of months and years, you're going to see the technology be more thoughtful and more directed towards people with disabilities across the board. So coming back to recap, how do you do this? 1, leverage your strengths. Do what you're good at. 2, nothing about us without us. Always build with and for someone. never just 4. 3, start with 1. Start with 1 person, start with 1 feature, start with 1 bug, but just get started because you're going to be making progress over time. Again, remember, there's no such thing as perfection. But honestly, the most important thing is, like I said, just get started, because if you don't, none of this is going to happen. And if you don't, you never know what you're going to be able to create.
A look can say a lot. A look can be honest and true. A look can speak for you. Say what's on your mind or in your heart. A look can say what's best unsaid and find the right words without having to say a word. A look.
It's great to see you.
Can say a lot.
How are you?
That's what we're here for. We're here to make technology that's built to help. Thank you.
Wow. Okay. Thank you, Chris. Thank you so much. Well, as you were speaking, I was taking notes and I have a lot of questions, but just I want to open the floor also for the people that want to ask any question. Remember, you can leave them in the chat if you want, or you can just unmute and ask. But something that I always felt whenever I saw you as a speaker or in a panel or whatever is this energy that you have that is contagious, that you want to do things. It's like, yeah, let's do it. That's what I feel, at least when I hear you. And you said that you pitched your role to Google and then you moved to the UK. Definitely that you need to share with us how you pitch things, because you you make everything go real, you know. There's a lot of people trying to create, it's not, I don't know if I would call it a business case, so they can start implementing accessibility in organizations, because sometimes it's not even in the agenda, the topic. So they are trying to pitch to their bosses, to the managers, why accessibility is important and that it should be a part of the product and not only at the end of the road, you know, at QA level and so on. So any advice on that, on how are those things that we could pitch beyond legal risk to a manager?
Yeah, I think the most important thing, and this is going to sound a little strange, but we need to have empathy with our leadership. We need to know what they care about, because we know what we want. But if we don't know what they want, it's very difficult for us to convince them because we don't know what they care. So what I've done in these situations is I go talk to their chief of staff, I talk with their admin, their secretary, people on their team, and what do they care about? What are they being judged on? And then I try to build the deck, the pitch, to align what I'm doing to something they're already doing, because entropy gets in the way. If you have to start something from scratch, that takes so much more energy, then just add a little more to what you're already doing. So that's a really important part, because like I said, different people are motivated by different things. Sometimes they're motivated by altruism, but usually not. Sometimes they're motivated by risk, often. Sometimes they're motivated by competition, surprisingly a lot. Okay, here's a true story. When I was helping pitch the accessibility team for our hardware organization, I learned that the SVP was a FOMO guy. He always looked at what competition was doing. And since I knew that, I was able to build my pitch deck. And it started off with a video from Apple. It was a Stevie Wonder Christmas. And it starts off in black, and you hear a screen reader talking, and then it sort of fades in, and you see logic being controlled, and then you pull back, and it's Stevie friggin' Wonder. And he turns around, plays on a piano, and then it goes into a Christmas ad. And I said, this is one of the biggest flexes of all. It starts off talking about accessibility, but never mentions the word. And those people know. And those people don't, it goes right over their heads. And then I showed a video from Microsoft with the Xbox Adaptive Controller. I showed the Super Bowl ads that they had. And I showed some stuff from Amazon. And I said, if you don't understand why these people that you respect are doing this, that's cool. Let me help you with that. But trust me, they're not doing this out of just altruism. They're doing this because it means something to the business. It means something to the reputation. This is worth doing. He gave me 5 heads. So we were able to build a team. But another team I talked to, they're all about risk. So we talked about all the lawsuits and all that kind of stuff. So you really need to know who you're talking to understand how to move them to you. Because you can have the best pitch in the world, and if you're not talking their language, literally or figuratively, it's not going to do you any good.
Absolutely. Love it. Love it. And talking about that, we are all in, actually, because we have here in the chat, thanks, Chris, listening to you is very motivating. Absolutely loved Christopher talk. So everybody was loving it. So another thing that you pitched in Google and had success about is the because you are the founder of the Google's Accessibility Discovery Centers. Can you tell us about it? What is it, and what are you looking forward?
So I say ADC just for short, because I say it a lot. So the ADCs are a place where you can come visit, and we will teach you about technology. We'll teach you about assistive technology. We'll teach you about inclusive design. We'll teach you about progress over perfection, disability-led innovation, joy. Whenever I give a talk, I always talk about joy, how it's important that we have to love what we're doing, because this is so hard. But then also we have a section for video games that you can play with assistive technology, and a table of mainstream kit like a Braille display, a Braille slate, a steady spoon, an E1 watch. And then we have stations for different dimensions of disability. We have a station for neurodiversity, speech and dexterity, hearing and vision. And we intentionally also include our competitors. We have stuff from Microsoft, Sony, Apple, Samsung, and ours. I know who pays my bills. But it's really important that we not be seen as we're trying to sell anything, because we're not selling anything. Well, we're selling accessibility, but accessibility is bigger than Google. And we're there to share great things from our friends, because the inspiration comes from somewhere. We all inspire each other, and we get to talk about the competition, how competition drives really cool innovation. And we built the first one in we launched the first one in December 2022 in London. And then in 2024, we launched them in Dublin, Dubai, Munich, Milan, and Zurich. So there's 6 of us now. This year, we're opening in Sao Paulo, opening in New York City, and Warsaw, Poland. So we're going to have 9 by the end of September. So this little experiment of, are people even going to come? We had no idea. We had no idea. My first KPI, my first judgment is that we'd be lucky if we had 500 people show up in the year. That didn't seem unreasonable, because we knew nothing. We had 2,000 people show up in that first year, just in London. Now we're on a clip of 10,000 per year because of all of these different centers. We've had over 20,000 people come through. It's amazing, because so many people actually do care. And so many businesses want to do the right thing, but they don't know how. So we provide this safe space for people to come and ask all the questions they're afraid of. And we don't laugh at them, we laugh with them. And then we try to show them what's there and what's possible, what's exciting. So if you spend all of your time just doing compliance, it's kind of like fertilizer. It's kind of smelly. It's not the most fun job. But if you take that work of compliance and apply it to a culture, you start to develop the insights of the needs of disabled people. You start to understand the mechanics, the nouns and verbs of accessibility. And with those insights and skills, now you can start to do the really fun stuff. Now you can start doing the innovation. So it's fine to start with compliance, but don't stay there. Let that be a way to do really fun things. So when I'm happiest, I'm setting my time at the top of Maslow's hierarchy of needs. We know the base stuff. We know how to make PDFs accessible. We know how to make work accessible. We know how to make school accessible. We may not do it, but there's a choice. We know how. That's not hard. That's just work. The fun stuff is how do you get someone a date? How do you get someone to have the life that they want to have, despite the fact that they have a disability and the world was not designed for us in mind? That's the fun stuff for me, is the top of that Maslow's hierarchy of needs. So I talk about trying to get someone a date, and that makes me smile.
Great. I think it is actually connected in some way with a question we have from Marley here. She's asking, is there a lab or website where these initiatives are documented? Can people as volunteers test them, provide feedback, and stay informed about their enhancements?
So I put the QR code I had shown, and I put the link to it in the chat, was to a newsletter that we will send out 3 or 4 times a year that gives you updates of all of the stuff that we are doing at Google. ADC, we don't have a dedicated website there, but you're welcome to reach out to me. I'll put the ADC email address here. Let's just do adclondon@google.com. Email me there, and I'll help you get connected to an ADC that's nearby. At these centers, we also do user research. So we invite disabled people to come in and help us make our products better. But we don't do research for non-Google products, because these places are run by volunteers. We just can't scale up enough to be able to support external research. But we're happy to explain how we do it, to explain the process, how we do accessibility at Google. All of that is an open book.
Great. So you need a website and you need some kind of process so we can.
So we're building. The challenge is that a company like Google, we're small potatoes compared to something like Google search. So getting the money and the time and all that kind of stuff is difficult, but we're not giving up.
Okay, great. Yeah, and it looks like it is something that was starting small and it grew so fast. And yeah, absolutely. Maybe it was not in the plans that it was going to grow that fast.
We had no idea that people would care, honestly. And it's really neat to see that people really do.
Well, it's good news that they do. So you mentioned that you are opening one in Brazil, in Sao Paulo.
Yeah.
And we need in Latin America one in Spanish. So take that into account for the future.
My ex-girlfriend's from Chile, so I have a strong affinity, even though she dumped me.
Thank God you didn't say Argentina, because every time that I talk to someone, they tell me, oh, I have an ex-girlfriend that is from Argentina, and I'm like, oh,
just as dangerous, but a faster language.
All right, yeah, because I'm Argentinian also, even though I live here in Spain. I'm Argentinian, yeah. So
I didn't hear a so I wasn't sure.
Yeah. Yeah. All right, so you're welcome to open one of the centers in Argentina. Just let me know. Okay, so here we have Paula. She asks, what do you think would be the first step to implement in a company that is just starting to talk about accessibility?
There's a couple ways to do this. One, wait for yourselves to get sued. That always helps. I don't recommend it, but it's a real powerful motivator. Another thing, again, this really leans into what I was talking about earlier. What do your leaders care about? Do they want to be considered thought leaders? Do they want to sell into the EU? Because you have to have accessible products to sell in many categories to sell into the EU. So I'd start by understanding what drives your leadership, what motivates them to make a decision, and see if you can make inclusion and accessibility part of that. So again, you don't need to start from scratch. But I know a lot of companies that started with a lawsuit. And I know a lot of companies that started with just people trying to do cool things, and all of a sudden it build up momentum. So another thing that you could try is do an innovation sprint or do a hackathon for accessibility and see if you can get a bit of good press or a bit of excitement inside your organization. Because if you only talk about the risk, people only think compliance and lowest common denominator, or what's the least that we can get away with. But if you make it fun, top of the pyramid kind of stuff, then people get excited. One of my favorite features that we have is a thing called Guided Frame, which was a hackathon that was started by one of our program managers' son, who's blind. And he got mad at his dad saying, "Dad, you work on Pixel. Why can't I take a selfie while I'm skateboarding like my friends can? He's blind on a skateboard. He's not my kid. Fine." But I love the idea that this is an interesting challenge to solve. So we built it. They did a hackathon. They proved it's possible. And we spent a long time trying to make this feature work. The hardest part wasn't the AI. The AI was the easy part, is what is ahead and where is it in the frame. The hard part is how do you give a user in real time enough information? And because of multimodality, it needs to be really thoughtful. So we use haptics and voice and colors and shapes all at the same time with a timer, so you don't need to move your hand around. And we give you feedback. And it happened because someone said, I can't take a selfie. And that got people really excited. And that was our Super Bowl ad just a couple of years ago, because we were so proud of the results of it. So doing something cool is a great way to get people excited.
Wow. Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's especially important in regions like Latin America, because of course that we always have the legal risk card in some way, right? But also what happens in Latin America, and I can speak more for Argentina in that case, is that we don't have the legal certainty that we have in other countries. So I will give you this tiny example. During COVID, the judiciary was sued by a blind lawyer because they couldn't work with the platform to keep working as lawyers while it was the pandemic. So of course the judiciary lost. So it was crazy that they had to write the sentence against themselves. But yeah, but they went to the court, to the second, degree, and they lost again. They had to write a second sentence against themselves. But and that created a lot of panic, among organizations, among even private companies, because they were like, if they cannot, save themselves, they won't be able to save me if I get sued. But the judiciary never actually complied with that sentence. They just ignored it. So if the judiciary is not complying, then the rest of the, of the organizations won't be complying. But I think it is super interesting, this thing about sometimes it is not about convincing your manager, but maybe your team, that motivation can be horizontal also. And I always say, we as the people that work building technology, we don't just build technology for the sake of building technology. We do it because we're amazed by it, like what you can do with it, what is the next step that it's going to take, and how it can shape people's lives. So I think that all of us has this, little spirit in us that is always a good base to talk about accessibility. All right, so I just want to talk a little bit about your role, I already said that you're like this unicorn because you have this weird intersection in your role where you have product, you have policy, and you have partnerships. You know, these three huge things.
I get yelled at by everybody.
Yeah, absolutely. But having these three things and trying to work on all of them together, you know, it's like taking the accessibility discussion off the design and product strategy or engineering itself, but going to a general strategy, right? And how do you combine these three huge topics?
Really? I do it as well as I can. Usually you don't have things blowing up in multiple areas, but honestly, they're all related. It's just people. Policy is just governments trying to help people. Products are our way of helping people. And people are the cornerstone of all of this. So it's in the relationships and partnerships, we're all here to do the same thing. We're all here to support ourselves and the community around us. We all just do it in different ways. So I have my partnership hat that helps me build relationships with organizations across Africa, across Middle East, across Europe. And I say that order intentionally, Africa first, Middle East and Europe, because Africa is usually like thought at the end. And I'm intentionally bringing them up as importance because that's where the greatest opportunity is, honestly. People, partnerships, you have to be proximate to someone. You have to build a relationship with them to want to trust you. Otherwise, they're not going to tell you the whole truth. So that's what the partnership hat is for. The policy hat is what do we got to do? And can we help them do this in a better way? Because if they're doing it poorly, the impact on the community is bad. The product is our way of serving that. So we build products and we develop insights, and with that we go to the policy people, hey, this is pretty cool, you should do this. And they also go to the community and say, hey, we think this is cool, what do you think? How can we make it better? Because people are hard. So we may have a great idea and it's poorly done, it's a bad idea. We may have a terrible idea, but we do it well, it actually could help people. We don't know. That's what that relationship means. So it all starts, it starts and ends with people and helping people and doing the right thing. And we have different ways of doing it through governments, through our technology, but it all comes back to people.
I love it. And also you have another layer on this role that is emerging countries. So what can you tell me about that? What are those things that make it different? What are the things that may be more difficult, but also those things that you benefit from?
So I think something that people often don't realize is that the majority of people with disabilities, of that 1.3 billion people, are in the global south. So if you don't know that, if you say, we have an addressable market of 1.3 more billion people in Finland, you're being a little bit disingenuous. So you need to be aware of where the opportunity is. And what I've learned is some really interesting things. Language is so important. This is where because I can't do everything, I'm focusing primarily on language. What can we do to make languages more resilient? What can we do to make languages more inclusive? And this stems from a conversation a friend and I had when we were in Nairobi the first time, about 6 years ago. We showed off Live Transcribe and we showed off Swahili. I said, oh, that's really cool. Do you have Luo? And I said, I'm sorry, we don't have Luo. He said, oh, if you had Luo, I could go to church. Because in my church, they speak Luo. I know Swahili and English are official languages, but my family speaks Luo. If you had Luo, I could be more engaged in my world. And it really struck me that even though we're doing the official languages, aka the colonial languages, that's not real people's real life. So ever since then, I've been focused a lot on languages across Africa, across India. And Other things that we've learned that are important is you can't assume that just because something works in Mountain View or London or Madrid or Mallorca doesn't mean it's going to work in a rural village in Africa or a village in India. Power is different. Technology is different. People are different. Culture is different. All of these things matter. So if you're to build something, you need to understand what those things are. So that's why it comes back to people. So my emerging market work is really trying to understand the need and opportunity for people that I don't see every day, but who matter. And what can we do to try to make it better? And I'm frustrated all the time that we're not doing as much as we could, because business is business and we all have to do the right thing for a business. But we have enough people that are working on this, that we're moving that ball up the hill often enough that I'm proud of what we're doing, and I'm excited to create more trouble and doing more things for more people.
Count on us for that. Yeah, that is something that I see a lot, you know, as a woman from the global south, you know, I'm from Latin America. I can see in these huge organizations, I had this privilege of becoming an invited expert at W3C, and I can tell that the majority of the people over there is from the global north. There's this limitations with the language, of course, for participation. And I always try with my students to encourage them to participate in these spaces, because we need more perspectives from different parts. So I was wondering if this strategy that you're implementing for emerging countries in India and in Africa, it is something that you plan in the future to implement in, for example, Latin America?
We have our first accessibility center in Sao Paulo. We have my buddy Bernardo Bernat.
Yeah.
He's Brazilian, but he also speaks Spanish. He is there to drive and understand the opportunities in Latin America. So we have someone there to do this work, and he's someone I trust very much.
Yeah, he's awesome. He's my friend also. So.
Oh, good. Yeah.
Yeah, Bernardo is great. All right. So I have one last question. I don't know if anybody else has any question, but now I will enter to a different dimension of your life, that is W3C. I know that in there you're a co-chair and you are, of course, one of the main contributors to immersive captions. Do you want to tell us a little bit more about what is it? What are you working on?
Yeah. So this came out of a conversation we had a number of years ago with XSR. I forget the name of the event. But I've always been interested in language. Again, being an opera singer, I've studied German, French, Italian. I'm studying Hindi for fun. Words are important, and I recognize that at the time VR was really becoming popular. I had just finished my work on Daydream, and I knew that captions were difficult. Where do you put them? How big? How do you do it in a thoughtful way? And someone said, "Well, is anyone to do anything out of this conference that we were at?" And I said, "Okay, I'll do it. I'll step forward if people are willing to help me." So I was basically guilted into it, but I'm really glad I did. And we have we used to meet every other week, and now we meet once or twice a quarter. We don't have the engineering talent that we used to. We for the first 3 years, we were meeting regularly. We had prototypes. We were testing different kinds of placement for captions, different specs. We had primarily deaf and hard of hearing people and some hearing people. So it was deaf-led research in terms of what captions would look like in 3D space. And we were working on films, so 360 films. And it was a blast. And we published a paper, and people have been referencing it, and so that's been really a proud moment in terms of that work. We've not been as busy because we don't have as many engineers working on it as we did before, and also the nature of technology has changed. VR really isn't what people are talking about. Things are really moving towards XR, towards augmented reality, like glasses, and that changes it significantly. And frankly, it's not as hard as the 360 stuff. So we don't have quite the same need that we were, but we're still there when the technology comes out, and we'll be able to do our part.
Yeah, well, I'm looking forward to that because that's going to be a very interesting topic. So here we have another question, Maria Jesus. Well, this is a tough one. So, hi, could you talk about the use of AI focused on developing accessible products and their users' privacy? Thank you.
There is an expectation that we have to have with any product that without knowing who you are, it has to be useful. It has to be useful, or else people aren't going to want to use it. But there is a level of additional functionality that you get when you give the AI more information of who you are, where you are, that kind of stuff. So if any product is going to be useful, it has to be useful, whether it's AI or not AI. But think about a pair of glasses that you have, and if you have an AI assistant that's working with you, an agent or whatever you want to call them, if you let it know where you are, it can help you guide where you are. If you let it see the menu in front of you, we can read it for you. We can translate it for you. If you let us know where you want to go, we can help you go there. It always has to be done in a way that is consistent with legislation, consistent with best practices, because if we're not trusted, we can't help anyone. So we have to be useful without it, but the more information you're willing to share with us, the more helpful we can become. And this is true with disability or not. But what we've learned is, especially with people who are blind, the impact is so meaningful. They're willing people tend to be more willing to give up a little privacy for that additional functionality, additional freedom that it gives them. So we have to take that really seriously and really thoughtfully. So we try to follow best practices. You can delete your data, it's gone. We only ask for things that are most important. We have very strict and rigorous privacy expectations and security expectations for the information that's there. Is it perfect? I don't think anything's perfect, but we're doing our best. And if we find something, we'll try to make it better. So I hope that's a helpful idea, that it has to be useful without the information, but the more you help, the more we know, the more we can be useful. And hopefully we'll earn that trust as we move forward.
Thank you. Okay, so we are on time, so I don't want to take more time out of you. But well, again, thank you very much for being here, for sharing all of this with us and all your knowledge that comes from a great experience, a lot of years working on accessibility and contributing to not only working with accessibility, but creating it, like contributing to its creation. So thank you again. And I will be organizing a karaoke night in the next event we cross paths with. So I can hear you sing opera. I'm waiting
do
to
an
do
opera, but I'll do a really bad light opera or a really good grunge song. How's that?
Okay.
That was tough of you, Susie. After his talk and all his time, you managed him. Sorry.
Yeah. Well, there's a lot of thank yous in the chat.
Yes.
My pleasure.
Yeah.
Okay, it's our pleasure. And before we go, I just want to thank also to the people that were supporting us with telling everybody that we had you here. That is IDA, el Instituto de Accesibilidad, y la comunidad que está abriendo Oscar, que está buenísima, que se llama Repeat, donde ayuda a los diseñadores a convertirse en diseñadores de producto, por supuesto gracias a la Universidad de Barcelona, a EARED, que es quien dirige el máster, acá Mireia y Chris, por el espacio, y también a Fundación DALAT, que estamos organizando estos eventos, y a YAP México, que nos está apoyando también con todo. Ya di todos mis agradecimientos, los espero. El próximo jueves tenemos a Shadia Bouzara y vamos a estar preguntando todo lo que quieran. Otro genio total. Y bueno, espero que hayan entendido por qué hay tanto hype alrededor de Christopher, porque es súper encantador y motiva muchísimo. Así que nada, ahora les he contagiado a todos lo fanática que soy de Christopher. Creo que ahora tienes más fans que antes. And here in the chat we have someone, Dani said, go Chile.
Muchas gracias.
Creo que también nos hemos vuelto un poco fans de ti, Susi, Susana Pallero.
Gracias.
Muchísimas gracias.
Very
Muchísimas
much.
gracias.
Yes.
Thank you. Have a lovely evening. Good night.
You too. Ciao.
Ciao, ciao. Ciao.